Chicken N Pickle. Oh, one of my favorites to talk about. If you haven't heard of them, you need to make sure you pull your head out of the sand because Chicken N Pickle is the biggest and fastest growing pickleball eatertainment concept in the country, if not the world. And it started in Kansas City, my home sweet home. So it's been really cool to actually watch them grow. And in this episode, I got to really talk with Kellen Mumm, who's the director of business development. And what's really interesting is I actually met with him 7 years ago when they first got started and started using my league software and negotiated with him. And I haven't really had much interaction with him since. It was really cool to talk to him and hear his background and his story. And they really have created this entertainment community with the rooftop and the pickleball and the bocce. And, you know, one of my favorite things to talk about with Kellen was how he got the expertise to find new locations in new cities to grow Chicken N Pickle. Check it out, Chicken N Pickle, and hope you enjoy it. What's up, everybody? Do you own or manage a facility? Well, you are in the right place. Welcome to the Facility Playbook. I'm Luke Wade, founder and CEO of Facility Ally, and this podcast is about helping facility managers and owners from the pioneers of the industry who have built and managed successful sports facilities, entertainment venues, and clubs. Did you know that most of those facilities I mentioned use between 4 and 6 different softwares to manage their memberships, lessons, leagues, rentals, and more? Facility Ally to the rescue. Facility Ally will revolutionize your facility management with our all-in-one system. Learn more at facilityally.com. Today, I'm with Kellen Mumm, Director of Business Development at Chicken N Pickle. Before we jump in, will you tell me a little bit about your background and what led you to Chicken N Pickle?
Sure, yeah. So Kellen Mumm, I started at Chicken N Pickle about 8 years ago now. That was when the idea was first started. I worked for our founder and owner previously in a real estate investment company. Straight out of college, I was working for him for a couple of years. He came up with this idea and asked me if I wanted to help figure out pickleball and figure out how to make money with pickleball. So that was kind of my start.
Had you heard of pickleball at that point?
So kind of. In high school, way back when, 100 years ago, we played a form of pickleball in gym class. And not until I rediscovered it because of this is when I looked it up again and was like, oh, I think I've played that before.
Sure. So tell me a little bit about that first pitch. Was it anywhere what we're seeing today?
Nah, so I'll give you the brief version. But so Dave, our founder, he went and visited a friend out in Phoenix who had a house, and there was a complex, and they had 8 pickleball courts. And so instead of playing golf that day, they went and played pickleball. And 8 a.m. they showed up at the courts, and there's 50, 60 people lined up to play pickleball. He played for 2-3 hours, first time ever. Played with a bunch of different people, met a ton of people. Just blew him away at how social the game was, how easy it was for him to pick up and learn. So he came back to Kansas City, and he was like, we need pickleball courts in Kansas City. Like, we got to do this. And then, his idea was, well, if I could play pickleball all morning and then grab some lunch to go bring it home for the wife, that'd be the perfect Saturday, right? So that was kind of the birth of it. His idea for the chicken part of it was his favorite restaurant down in the Cayman Islands. It's called Chicken. It's wood fire rotisserie chicken, a bunch of Jamaican sides and stuff, different things like that. But he loves that. He loves getting a half chicken, bunch of sides, bringing it home to the family. And so that was his idea. Let's play pickleball, and let me get a half chicken and some sides, go home. And that was kind of how it started.
So what part of that sold you? Like, why were you like, yeah, I'd love to do this?
I've always just been I've had that entrepreneurial mindset, and this was an opportunity for me to use, I'll use Dave's, one of his favorite quotes is OPM, which is the most powerful business tool you can use, which is other people's money. And so I was able to use Dave's money to start a business. I get to see the whole process. And my thought was, hey, I'm not a restaurant guy, I'm a finance guy, but I get to see how to start a business from the ground up, do everything. And I'll go from there. 8 years later, here I am still doing it.
So finance guy into real estate. And now what are you doing with Chicken N Pickle?
Yeah. So I do a little bit of everything, from the time our site selection crew finds the site, locks it in. I get brought in with the architects, and we work on fitting that site with our concept. And then we go into, design development stages, into construction documents, and we bring on the general contractor. Then I became basically the owner's rep for that project throughout the build. I have a little bit of hand in everything from picking furniture to designing the AV package to everything, paint colors on the walls too. So
that's what you're doing today. But you used to be a little bit more involved with like some of the day-to-day management. So you've done it all.
Yeah. So starting out, right, I was a little bit of that. I didn't know what I was doing on the first one. So I did a little bit of everything. And then the store opened. And then as any new business, but us specifically, because it was the first, pickleball and restaurant concept combined, we had a lot of growth, a lot of challenges that we had to learn. So I was there. I was an opening manager for 6 months, opening 6 days a week. First time ever in the restaurant world for me personally. So that was a good learning curve, but definitely learned a lot in those 6 months. And then onward after that, as we tried to organize ourselves a little bit better, and before we got to our second one, which was about 2 years after we opened our first one.
So do you feel like some of that day-to-day manager experience helped you realize what the next couple facilities should look like?
100%. Because really when you're, for me, I want to make sure whatever I'm designing or building for the guys that are going to go in there and operate it 7 days a week, I want to give them as many tools they can so they don't have to worry about something going wrong or this breaking. Or my hope is it's the easiest restaurant for them to run, easiest facility for them to run, so that they can focus on what's most important, which is our guests, right?
Awesome. So thank you for all that background. I was more or less just interested to hear more of that from you. But for those who maybe don't know what Chicken N Pickle, so what is Chicken N Pickle today?
Yeah. So Chicken N Pickle, it's a restaurant entertainment concept born right here in Kansas City. It's a concept that brings fast casual dining and pickleball and outdoor entertainment. So we have indoor, outdoor pickleball courts. Usually have a large yard for yard games. Then we also have multiple bars inside, outside, and a rooftop. Lots of events, whether private or public events throughout the week. We do anything from, a 10-year-old birthday party to a corporate outing of 250 people. And everything in between that.
And so we're in the Kansas City area. So we're in Overland Park, Kansas. The original one opened up in North Kansas City. And now how many of them are there and where all are you located?
We are opening our 8th store next month in Glendale, Arizona. But we started in North Kansas City, Missouri, went to Wichita, Kansas. Then we went to San Antonio, Texas, Oklahoma City, Grand Prairie, Texas, which is the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Overland Park, Kansas, and Grapevine, Texas, which is also in the DFW area. That one just opened in January this year. Now we're opening Glendale, Arizona this year, St. Charles, Missouri this year, and then Webster, Texas, which is in the Houston area. That'll open early next year, early 2024.
How long before you can't name them all, do you think? Or do you think
I'm already I'm already at that point where we have so many in the pipeline now that there are some that I can't even talk about because they're not public yet. So
sure. Well, that's amazing. Congratulations. I love it. I'm a huge fan. I play several days a week pickleball and actually play at the original location. And I remember you mentioned pickleball kind of came first and then it was like, oh, let's add the food onto it. And so you even in North Kansas City built the courts first before the restaurant came later. So what was the reason for that?
Main reason is we don't have patience to wait for the whole drawings to get finished. So the court building and the courts themselves, that was easy to do. So we had that done and we were like, let's get in there. Let's start moving dirt. And we were still finishing the drawings on the restaurant part while we were building. So we were able to get those courts open pretty fast. That's a relatively simple structure and build compared to a restaurant. So that's what we did. We opened it. It actually worked. It was about 6 months before the restaurant opened. I was working. We had a little shack. It was actually a storage container that we cut the hole out of the side of it and put a bar top on it and said, look, we'll serve beer out of it.
I remember that's actually when I first started playing pickleball, honestly, when you guys opened. That was my first time. And I remember thinking, like, why did they put this here and why just courts? And then 6 months later, I was like, okay. So it was really interesting for me, at least, to see both sides of that. So What are some of the biggest challenges you face running the facility of Chicken N Pickle?
Yeah, the biggest thing is, right, it's more of a resort that we have, right? We have so many different aspects of this property, so many different spaces. There's a lot of different spaces to manage. So it's hard for just a restaurant GM to come in here and be able to manage all of it, because you have your pickleball team, your events team, your standard front of house service, so standard back of house service, and then everything else that goes on top of it. We have community and different public events that come in too that we also organize, and so that's why I say it's a resort, because you have to think of it like that, right? You have the pickleball side, and you have, how does that work with the rooftop event that's coming? Because what if they want courts, and then you have to train the staff on how to deal with that when those things come up, and so there's so many more things that when you just have four walls of a restaurant, you're like, all right, well, if everything in the kitchen's working, everything in the front in the diner is working, I'll be all right today, right? Sure. There's 100 other things that can go wrong.
So as you mentioned, with 8 facilities, what's the secret sauce that makes you figure it out to create this amazing experience? Like, what do you believe it is that helps manage all that so that you guys are as successful as you have been?
Yeah, well, I have to give most of the credit to the people. It's our day-to-day operations that are really making this thing run as smoothly as it does. Like I said, I like to try and give them as many tools as possible to be successful day to day. But it's really them that are coming in here and taking care of our guests and giving them outstanding service on a day-to-day basis that keeps people coming back, keeps you coming back every week to play, right?
So do you have any sort of secret, or do you have anything that, when you're hiring people that you maybe think that you guys do differently or more efficiently, since it's all about the people, which I totally agree, something you need to do differently to find the great team that you have?
A lot of things I think that we are a little bit different is how community focused we are. Everything we do has a little bit of how can this affect the community that we're in? Every employee is able to take a couple of days and go volunteer in the community for a charity. You can submit your favorite charity to us, and we'll enter it in to either do a green cup campaign, which is when you buy a Coke and the proceeds of that cup go to whatever charity per month, and that's a rotating thing. We do that every store. Tuesday after Labor Day is our day of giving. We close all 8 stores, and everyone goes out into the community, and we volunteer for a full day. And we do that everywhere. We're always going to do that. It's just something that when you work here, that you're not just clocking in and collecting a paycheck. You're actually making an impact to people in your community too, things you care about.
Sure, that makes sense. So you're very community focused, so you feel you're driving in more people who care about the community and believe and align with your vision, so it just kind of works together in the same methodology.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So one of the other things you mentioned was, like, it's not just coming in here and running like a day-to-day restaurant. That's one of the things I think I noticed early on from you guys that was really different. Is now I feel like everybody's saying fast casual, but I hadn't heard of it when I first saw Chicken N Pickle. And so maybe talk about the fast casualness of Chicken N Pickle, where that idea came from and how it's made you successful.
Yeah, there are a lot of growing pains in that as well. So our concept is you come in the door, it's all open seating everywhere that's not a closed event. But you go up to the cashier, order your food. They'll give you a number, a little table tent. Then you go anywhere on property that you want, sit down, a server will come over, take your drink order, come and bring you drinks, add to that tab that you started at the cashier. There's a lot of challenges that came with that because we are such a large project. Most of our stores are an acre or more from cashier to pickleball courts. So that could be a lot of ground to cover in A, just finding that table tent, and B, the food runner, because we have specific food runners that are just there to grab food and run it to that table. And then the servers are solely focused on making sure that their tables have everything they need, any drinks they need, refills, silverware, whatever you need. And so getting that kind of dance down because we want you to be able to order, sit down, get your drinks, have your food, 10, 15 minutes max. And then so for a business lunch, you can have your food, have, your meeting, do everything in your hour time frame if you need to. But if you want to, you can stay for 2-3 hours if you want.
Sure.
Have some drinks, play some bags outside or whatever.
So when we first talked, you said we opened pickleball first, then you opened the restaurant later. Now do you feel like what are you thinking about more first when you're building these new facilities?
Now it all starts in the restaurant. You got to make sure that you get that exactly dialed in. You really can't have one without the other. We tried it again in Wichita, opening the courts first and then the restaurant after, and it's just a challenge to get people in. It worked out well in North Kansas City just because of how tight of a community that was. Wichita, we were new coming in and no one knew what pickleball was, and so they're like, well, why are we coming here, right? I was like, well, come play pickleball. And so it was more of a challenge to get people in. We find now, we're able, if we're open both at the same time, half our business, they come in for lunch and then they're like, hey, what's going on over there? And they go, oh, well, that's pickleball. Let me show you.
Yeah.
And then they come back, a week later to play some pickleball.
So that's leads me right to my next question. So with the rise of pickleball, now everybody knows what it is, right? I feel like. So yeah. What's the biggest difference between Chicken N Pickle 8 years ago and Chicken N Pickle today because of this growth of pickleball?
It's become less of us having to teach everybody. A lot of the markets we've went to, Kansas City, San Antonio, when we built in San Antonio, I think there were probably six or 8 courts in the whole city. The city of 5 million people, right? There's no pickleball courts. We open, we open with 10 courts, and people are like, "What's going on? What are you doing?" And now there's a ton of courts. There's hundreds of courts, and so it makes it a little easier because right now people are coming to us to play, traveling to us because of pickleball, and we're the premier place to play pickleball in the country. There's no other experience like it, and I think our service and our food elevates that as well. So that's why now if you're a serious pickleball player from California or Florida, you have hundreds of courts around you, they will travel to a Chicken N Pickle because it's the place you have to play pickleball.
That's awesome. And along this same vein of you guys use our league software, and so we talked about that seven years ago. I remember sitting with you in the office talking about the software and using it. And so again, with this transition, have you guys, leagues are a really big thing. It's a big thing for my business and then this industry. Have you guys transitioned more into different types of leagues and events, or talk about maybe the transition of leagues were felt like the big thing, and now maybe they've kind of slowed a little bit?
Yeah, so just the public leagues have slowed down a bit, but we've got into other types of leagues and other tournaments, like here in Overland Park, for example. NPL is out this weekend, which is a national league for 55 and older, and it's they travel the country playing at different venues, but they're traveling to all of the Chicken N Pickles to play, and so that's more of, these are serious players, and they're good. We'll go in there and watch it later, man. They're some good players. They'd whoop us pretty easily.
I've definitely been beat by people in that age group for sure. That's why I always tell people, I'm like, I play so much now because I'm trying to be the best guy in the retirement home someday.
Yeah.
Cool. So you guys have grown so much over the last few years. What led to choosing the first location? You said the next one was Wichita. What led to that, and then how did it grow from there?
Yeah, so North Kansas City was the easy choice because that's where Dave is headquarters. So he likes to be as close to his businesses as possible when he starts them. So that was the easy first pick. Wichita was our second pick just because it is about 2 hours away from Kansas City. And so it is easy to get to if there is a problem. We have some issues and we need to shift a manager around or something like that. It's easy to pick and pull from a store that you already know and operate.
Sure.
And we felt North Kansas City was running well, and so you can kind of train there and then move to Wichita. So it's and then moving to San Antonio as our first Texas location. We knew we needed to get to Texas just because of how much outdoor space we have. We knew we needed to utilize the outdoor space 12 months a year. Kansas City, it's hit or miss, right? 8 months, you're good. 9 months, maybe.
Yeah.
But we knew we had to be in Texas, and San Antonio was a good first step for us.
So what do you believe is the biggest obstacle when scaling from 1 to 2 to multiple locations?
Yeah, it's it's got to be keeping consistent in what you're doing, right? It was easier, right, from Kansas City to Wichita because you are right there. People like Bill Koenig, who is the head of operations of those 2 stores. He can drive there if there's a fire, quote unquote fire, and get there and help. If your third store is San Antonio, you got to hop on a plane, you got to get a rental car, you got to do all the things to get there. So it's a lot harder. So and that's the same issue why some franchise, if you franchise, you have issues because that GM or that operating crew that's there kind of tucked away further away from your home base decides, hey, let's add this to the menu and let's stop doing this whole pickleball thing. Let's turn these into badminton courts. And you're like, I don't know. So you can't lose your way in what you do well.
So does Chicken N Pickle have their own facility playbook?
We have our own forms of it. Yeah, we have kind of our standard operating procedures that we train each store as we go. So there are certain things that they have to do, certain measures they have to hit.
Awesome. So since everybody can play pickleball, young, old, doesn't matter, what do you think is the biggest focus? What should be the biggest focus going forward? What's Chicken N Pickle's biggest focus? Is it adults, youth, seniors, competitive play, recreational? What do you kind of see it?
That's hard for us because we do say, we do think we're kind of cradle to grave as far as our target audience, right? We bring in everybody to play pickleball. All age groups can play. So we aren't really focused on one target audience. We're really planting flags in every major metro. Is
anybody that wants good eats, good community, and fun, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So how important are the public and private events for you? So maybe is public more important or the private more important, or how do you determine on how many you're doing of each?
Yeah. So I'd say private events are probably more important. And just for the sheer fact that we can bring in, big corporations like Garmin and do a huge thing. And that not only, it brings in 150 of their employees, but those are local people to that headquarters, right? And then they see it and they're like, oh man, this is cool. And they want to bring their families back. So that's our chance to show a big corporation, hey, here's some cool stuff that you can't do elsewhere. And then it brings those families back. So
sure. So you talked a little bit about the tour that's here today, and I know you guys are sponsoring the Pro Tour, right?
That's right.
Can you talk about a little bit about why you decided to do that and how you picked some of the players that you're working with?
Yep. Mainly the players we selected, they all kind of fit our core values as well as a company. We have a set of core values, based on integrity, family. Can those players, replicate what we try to do here in our stores, and they're doing that at these tour events across the country. So, we're happy to provide them with gear and support them and bring them here to do, private clinics and different things like that, because A, we like them, and B, we love watching them play, so we may as well, support them.
Sure. So if you started all over today, what would you do differently?
Yeah. Man.
I'm sure you're already doing some of it, right? It's just always learning and moving forward, but just curious what, maybe one thing.
And I'd simplify a little bit of how we're building these. So, and I'd keep it the same box that we're building. Stores 1 through 9 right now are all a little bit different. But there's a lot of things that'll be the same, same feel. You still walk into it, it still feels like a chicken and pickle, but they're different enough that it takes a lot of time. I wish we had I wish I had Overland Park that I could have built first, right? Yeah. Control V that one. So.
So what's the next 3 years look like for Chicken and Pickle?
Next 3 years, we're gonna open a lot of chicken and pickles. I think 2024 is gonna be a huge year. We're gonna open 5 to 6 more, and I honestly hope we double that the year after that, and double that the year after that. So.
They're going to need like 5 or 6 more of you.
Yeah, they're going to have to control me too. So,
yeah, don't forget, if you're looking for something to help you automate your facility, check out facilityally.com. If you're looking for league management, membership management, that sort of stuff, check it out. And before we get out of here, what's one book or podcast you'd recommend for the listeners?
Yeah, actually one I listened to this morning, kind of answers both. It's a podcast called Founders, and they usually do a good summary of a book, of an autobiography of somebody. So I listened to one this morning about Arnold Schwarzenegger. Really good. Super fascinating just to hear about founders of companies. So which resonates with me, obviously, because I'm kind of a founder of Chicken N Pickle since I was here since day one. So I like to hear what other people did in completely different lines of work. But there's always lessons to be learned.
That's cool. I'll have to check that out. Maybe someday we'll both get on there on that one. So, all right. What's one last piece of advice that you'd give to our listeners for running facility?
I would say get organized, right? Make sure if you make a mistake, that's all right. Just make sure you don't make the same mistake. It's going to happen. I'm still making mistakes, but try and make sure that you learn from that mistake and do something different and better the next time. Even if it screws up again, try it again.
Fail forward is what I like to say.
That's right.
Well, thanks so much for having us out here. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's all for today. Thanks for joining us on the Facility Playbook, brought to you by Facility Ally. We'll see you next time.